according to math.
I'll believe your arithmetic, Senator.
Okay. And determining that our poverty rate is 11%, or 36 million Americans, which makes us look bad, only will consider direct cash payments from the federal government to poor people, such as, let's say, SSI payments or TANF payments. But the foremost reason for tariffs is to try to stop other countries from taking advantage of us through either their tariffs or trade barriers. Hello, Mr. Secretary. I'm over here. How are you?
Good.
Mr. Secretary, as you're also head of the IRS, we've had some tough ice storms. Would you and your colleagues consider an extension on allowing extension to allow people to file taxes a little bit later?
Senator, I've been in touch with the governor of the great state of Louisiana, and he and I and my staff are working on that. It is traditional to grant extensions. They have 4 events like this.
Good. If Canada came to the United States, well, let me preface this by saying I understand that tariffs have a number of purposes, but the foremost reason for tariffs is to try to stop other countries from taking advantage of us through either their tariffs or trade barriers. If Canada, for example, came to the United States and said, we're going to zero tariffs in the United States. All of them are off on our end. Would you, Mr. President, speaking to our president, go to zero tariffs and then just let Canadian companies and American companies compete on a level playing field?
Absolutely not. As we saw last week, when 2 weeks ago, when Prime Minister Carney went to China, he lowered tariffs on Chinese EVs from 100% to 6%. U.S. has a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. We couldn't let our northern border be used as a way for Chinese EVs to come into the U.S.
Right. Okay. I'm going to lead you a little bit because Senator Scott is a she-bear when it comes to time. The poverty rate, according to the Census Bureau, is 11%, isn't it, in America?
I'll take it. I'll take your word, Senator.
And that's the Census Bureau defines poverty, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the Census Bureau, in defining poverty and determining that our poverty rate is 11%, or 36 million Americans, which makes us look bad, only will consider direct cash payments from the federal government to poor people, such as, let's say, SSI payments or TANF payments?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the Census Bureau, in determining poverty, doesn't include non-cash payments? It doesn't include Medicaid or food stamps or housing subsidies or refundable tax credits. Isn't that true?
That is correct, Senator.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Mom, 2 kids, poverty level for her and her kids is $27,000. Mom works part-time. She makes $11,000. According to our Census Bureau, she's poor. She's below the poverty line. But she also receives, she works, I recall I said, makes $11,000 a year. She receives $4,100 in refundable earned income tax credits, $3,400 in refundable child tax credits, which means she gets a check, $9,200 in food stamps, $9,500 in housing subsidies, $900 in utility bill subsidies, $16,000 in Medicaid, $31,000 a year in free school lunches, and $6,000 in TANF payments. If you add that up, that's $64,100 a year, according to math.
I'll believe your arithmetic, Senator.
Okay. But using the Census Bureau's definition of poor, they don't include all these payments. They just include her income and the TANF payment. Does that make sense to you?
No, sir, and you should bring that up with the Commerce Department.
I know, but you've got influence. I know how close you and the Commerce Secretary are. I'm hoping you could bring it up with somebody above.
The president says we're opposites, and I'm tall.
I'm not going to comment on that. Would you talk to the president about this? If you include all cash and non-cash payments, the poverty rate in America is 1%.
That's a good point to end on.
Thank you,
I
Senator.
told you he was a she-bear.
That's a yes or no.
No, Congressman.
All you have to ask
the
is yes or
OCC
no.
is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman.
so that- I take that-
in
I take that as a no.
2006, you traveled to Venezuela
I
to lobby
take
Hugo
that as a no.
Chavez on behalf of
I
your
take that
donors,
as a
on
no.
behalf of your
You
donors.
do not want to answer that
I was
question.
sentenced to 110
I take
years
that
in
as a
jail
no.
For a $7 billion
Gentlemen's
contract.
time
I'm
is
asking you to
expired.
do your
Ask the
responsibility
Secretary.
as Secretary of the Treasury.
Into a Venezuelan
You do not.
Mr. Meeks,
Will you?
time has expired.
You
Well,
cannot
tell
erase
the
what you
witness,
did in
He's the one that went
2006.
past your time, Mr. Chairman.
No, and
he did not answer my question, and he wouldn't pass the
Mr.
time.
Meeks. He had 6 seconds left to try to answer your question, and the
It was
time
a yes or
expired.
no. It was a yes or no answer. I asked him, will he? No, was that
Gentlemen,
yes
the
or
chair
no?
recognizes
OCC
the
is an
gentleman.
independent
Stop
agency.
Mr.
covering
Bessent.
for the president.
Yeah, well,
Stop being his flunky.
yeah, and
Gentlemen.
He's talking to me. I'm responding
your
back to him.
2006 trip to Venezuela.
Neither
Why
one-
don't
Stop
why don't you
covering
tell
for
your
the
Secretary
president.
about
Don't be a
that?
flunky. Work for the
Mr.
American
Secretary,
people.
Mr. Meeks,
trip to
Mr.
Venezuela?
Meeks.
Work for the American people.
And maybe
Don't
you're
be
going-
a
maybe you're
cover-up
going to-
for a mob. More than $1 million in contributions, 4 trips to the Bahamas, and all expenses paid stays at resort hotels. Following the scandal, the industry saw sweeping regulatory changes that was launched by then-President George H.W. Bush. Now, Mr. Secretary, I'm sure you can agree conflicts of interest and improper influence by U.S. elected officials over bank regulators weaken supervisory independence and ultimately impose massive losses on consumers and taxpayers. I think that we can all agree upon that. And as we know, the basic lessons from the post-Keating reforms still applies today when the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the OCC, is deciding to get a bank charter. I think we can stimulate that. Now, Mr. Bessent, as our nation's treasurer, I'm sure you also know that a foreign-linked investment firm tied to the United Arab Emirates government quietly bought about half of the Trump family's crypto company, World Liberty Financial. And at the very same time, the President of the United States was dealing with that country on foreign policy. Now, Eric Trump, the president's son and co-founder of World Liberty Financial, said, and I quote, "I'm not going to get into who the investors are, but I've got some pretty meaningful investors," end of quote. Lack of transparency. And it didn't end there. When Trump fans brought the tokens, they thought they were getting the deal of a century. But what they didn't know was that only Trump and his sons had the sole power to decide who can sell the token and when. Today, the price of the token has fallen over 50%, and the Trump fans who bought the token are now begging to get out. Now, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. You can see it for yourself on the World Liberty Financial Discussion Forum. Yeah, yourself, Mr. Secretary. So this is no longer just about a shady crypto deal or a possible gift. When a foreign-linked investor is putting hundreds of millions of dollars into a company controlled by the president's family, and at the same time, this president is conducting foreign policy with that country. You know what that causes or creates? It creates a national security concern. So, I'm not going to ask much of you, Mr. Secretary. I just want to know whether you will commit today to pause and heighten the scrutiny of any bank charter or licensing application at the OCC connected to the World Liberty Financial until all of these conflicts of interest and foreign influence reviews are completed and shared with the United States Congress. All I need to know is, will you halt it and do a complete investigation and scrutiny of this licensing application? All you have to ask is yes or no.
No, Congressman.
All you have to ask
the
is yes or no.
OCC is an independent entity, and I would know, Congressman,
so that- I take that as a no.
You traveled to Venezuela to lobby
I take that as a no.
Chavez on behalf of
I
your
take that
donors,
as a
on
no.
behalf of your
You
donors.
do not want to answer that
I was
question.
sentenced to 110
I take
years
that
in
as a
jail
no.
For a $7 billion
Gentleman's
contract.
time
I'm asking you to do your responsibility as Secretary of the Treasury.
Into a Venezuelan
You do not.
Mr. Meeks,
Will you?
time has expired.
You
Well,
cannot
you
erase
told the
what you
witness
did in
He's the one that went
2006.
past your time, Mr. Chairman.
No, and
he did not answer my question, and he wouldn't pass the
Mr.
time.
Meeks. He had 6 seconds left to try to answer your question, and the
It was a
time
yes or
expired.
no. It was a yes or no answer. I asked him, will he? No, it was
Gentlemen,
yes
the
or
chair
no.
recognizes
OCC
the
is an
gentleman.
independent
Stop
Mr.
covering
Bessent.
for the president.
Yeah, well,
Stop
Mr.
being his flunky.
yeah, and
Gentlemen.
He's talking to me. I'm responding
your
back to him.
2006 trip to Venezuela.
Neither
Why
one-
don't
Stop
why don't you
covering
tell
for
your
the
Secretary
president. Don't be a
that?
flunky. Work for the
Mr.
American
Secretary,
people.
Mr. Meeks,
trip to
Mr.
Venezuela?
Meeks,
Work for the American people.
And maybe
Don't
you're
be
going-
a
maybe you're
cover-up
going to
for a mob.
Maybe you're going to
As
see your
long as
friend
he talks,
Nicholas
you talk.
Maduro
I will.
in
gentleman
Brooklyn
is not
prison.
recognized. Mr. Bessent, please.